Okay, so you'll notice in Blackboard, there's a new folder, it says Case Studies. This is the material that'll be what's called Test 4, but Test 4 is open notes, open book, I guess you could say. All the materials, even what you should read from the book, are in this folder, okay? And you will, we just picked assignments, or you'll be assigned, right, to a case study. But you're going to eventually read them all, okay? But you're only going to answer questions in the discussion board for the one that you've been assigned or the one you picked, okay? So in this folder is all the information. So once you've been assigned, right, you could get to your information. You do have to cite, right? You're going to have to look up this information, whether it be from the book, which I have that citation for you, or this case study actually comes from a book. So what we're going to go through right now is how to cite using MLA, and we're going to use EasyBib, right? And so, and that just reminds me, yeah, let me move this up later. These are instructions that I worked with one of the librarians, and she'll probably be added into my course. I need to touch base with her and make sure that she's still going to be my librarian. So you'll actually have somebody who there to help you with citations, and that is actually going to check the citations. I don't do the citation portion. I do the content, right, the actual answers to the questions. So once you know your case study, you would click on your case study name, and this is the information from the book, and I've already done the MLA format, so if you reference the book, you just have to paste and copy this into the discussion board if you get your answers from reading these pages of the book. So these are just scanned copies. This is the older version of the book, but it is the same information. So you can read in your book too, but it's here so that you know what sections you should actually be referencing in your book, right? And it's obviously on fungi for the fungus one. And then I have the questions written out for you, because what I have done is I have changed and modified some of the questions, and I've even added some questions. So these are the actual questions that I want you guys to answer. And so I have that in a file that says fungi questions. And these lines denote the different threads that are already in the discussion board. So these questions have already been added to the discussion board for you. Once you are assigned, or once you decide, and I'm going to let this class, I'm going to let you guys pick amongst your group who's going to do what questions, right? And you can figure that out using the discussion board. I have a link right in the discussion board for picking questions, right? Which ones you're going to do. So you can take a look at the list, right, and see which ones you want to work on, and divide it up as evenly as y'all can. And then you'll see the actual case study itself. For this one, it's the tat is where it's at, because it's actually a tattoo, is how she gets this infection. So here's the actual case study, right, that you can read through, and you can see that there are questions in it, but like I said, go based mostly by the modifications that I have posted for you guys. And then the other thing is the case study book information. So as I said, this is actually from a case study book. So you need this information, right, from the book to be able to cite it. So what we're going to do, though, is use EasyBib, and one of the nice things about EasyBib is a lot of these things have already been put into that database. So I'm going to go back to the main folder, and I'm going to click on the EasyBib link. Come on, Internet. And I'm going to click on book, because it is a book, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is click on book. The name of the book is Case Studies in Microbiology. So I start typing. And I think it says something else, like a human perspective. But if you type in most of it, it probably has it, and this one I know it does, right? So a personal approach. So I would click Cite this, and check and make sure that the information is correct. The authors are the same, right? It's published by Wiley, right? 2012, Wiley, 2012. And we're only doing one case out of this book. So you would do not the whole book, right, but a chapter or section. And then you would have to fill in the name of the chapter or the section. So for this one, the TAT is where it's at, is the name of the section, is the name of the case study. Come on, Erica. I think it's all capitalized. Let's see. TAT, oh, TAT is in quotations. And then explanation point. And down at the bottom, then we'd have to put in the page numbers. So the pages for this case study is 24 to 25. 24 to 25. And that's all we've got to do. Click Create Citation, and there it is, right? You can click to copy and paste. You can export. I find copy and paste is the easiest way to mess with it. And then what you're going to do is go back to Blackboard, and you're going to click on the bonus citation. You get bonus points for doing this. And the first question, you have to indicate which case study you've been assigned. So I did the fungi one, so I would do fungi. Right, I even have them listed here, so you can just copy. And then you're going to paste in your citation. And then you hit Save and Submit, and you're done. Once you complete the assignment, just like my tests, although this one doesn't have to be open in a lockdown browser, right? You can click OK, and it will tell you the correct answers. So you can see for the fungi case study what the correct answer is, right? So you can go to this at any time, and you can copy and paste from here too if you need to for your discussion board, right? If you need to cite the actual case study, if you used it to answer the question, right? Some questions are going to require some outside research. And websites are fine, except Wikipedia, right? Wikipedia is a no, 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 right? Because it could be it's basically reading someone else's research paper. And depending on where they got that information and how they interpret it, they may have kind of jumbled it up and had it inaccurate. Although I'll say, most of the stuff I have seen on Wikipedia for microbiology has been mostly accurate. Please state a more reputable site, especially for disease information. One of your best sites is going to be the CDC. CDC.gov, right? Centers of Disease Control. Yeah, through Delgado Library, you have access to journal papers and stuff like that. For these case studies, you wouldn't necessarily need to go to that level. Most of the information you can find online on reputable websites.
Well, we can't use Wiki as a source itself. Wikipedia.
Right.
They usually have a
reference.
Footnoted annotation for their sources. We can go to the original source.
Right, exactly. So if you went to Wikipedia and you go to their original sources, that would be fine, right? And then, of course, you would just reference that original source that you went to, not Wikipedia. Make sense? And I was going to say that, but thank you. And so depending on your answer, now this is a totally different, because I didn't want to give you guys any of the answers, but this is an example of a discussion board post answering a research type question. So you'll notice, for this particular one, I just had them put the page number whenever they did the textbook, but you guys would use the full citation that I have already generated for you for the textbook. But for websites, and look at this one, they used a PubMed, but make sure that if you're using a website, that you actually put the exact link as well, right? And if you're using more than one source as you're writing, so notice they use the textbook, like I said, for that particular assignment, I allowed them to just put the page number in parentheses. But notice they have two sources, so they have two places where they noted where the information came from. Okay, so if you're using multiple sources, you need to number them, and just very simply, in parentheses at the end of that section that you've referenced, put it, the number to that reference, so I know where you got your information. Does that make sense to you guys? Okay.
So there's not a word count or anything like that?
No, there's not a word count, and some answers may be a couple of sentences, some may be an entire paragraph. It just varies depending on the questions, right? So just write enough to answer the question, and the level of detail so that, someone who doesn't know would understand, which basically is you, right? So if you understand it, hopefully the rest of us would understand it. But some people, like in some of them I put, with signs and symptoms, don't use terms like edema. You can write edema, but what would you put in parentheses? Swelling, right? Because some people don't know what edema is. We want to keep it at a basic level. Does that make sense? Okay. And then I'm going to go through, like I said, and I'll grade them, and hopefully my librarian will agree to help out again. And so if she posts in the discussion board, or if she emails you, she usually does both, to change a citation that you did it incorrectly, make sure you do that, because otherwise you'll lose points. But she and I are going to be in these discussion boards, right, looking at stuff and posting, and so up until the due date, so that way you can make corrections and not lose points, okay? So the other thing is, don't wait till the deadline. Start working on this now, right? Don't wait till the last minute.
I'll start Friday.
Yeah. Yeah, start after the exam. I'm sure that's when most people are going to start. And I just clicked off of the class. So one of the first things that you can do is just go ahead and do that bonus citation, right? Since you know what case you're in, because we just did that today.
Is it each person that does it, or one group?
No, each person does their own bonus citation. But within the case study, right, and I'll put links to the actual case studies in these folders too, to the discussion board, I should say. So this is where you're going to actually answer your questions, and that's where I wanted to go next. So you'll notice that there are, down at the bottom, 5 more case studies. And so you're only going to post in the one that you're working on, right? And I have added for you guys right here, pick which questions you're going to answer and reply. And like I said, they're all here. In this way, they're in reverse order, but if you switch up the date, it'll go in order. See, I put them in order. So all you have to do is find the one that you've agreed to do once you guys divvy up the questions, and then just click on it, and you're going to just reply, okay? And you'll notice that I have taken away the option to do attachments. I don't want to have to try and open up attachments to be able to read these. I want you guys posting right in the message field. But as some of you guys have experienced, right, sometimes when you're typing on Blackboard, if you're not somewhere where you have a really good internet connection, you might lose connection. You will lose the information you're typing in this field. So what I suggest to most people is go ahead and type it up in a Word document, right? Offline or online or whatever. Save it, And then just copy and paste into this message field, right, once you're finished answering it. And so that way, when we click on it, we can see your whole thing, and we don't have to click on an attachment. You also notice that you have no ability to add threads in these discussion boards. You can only reply to these threads that are already there, right? Again, just to keep it all uniform, right, so we don't have a big old mess of the discussion board. And you'll notice, again, you can even see most of the question without even clicking on it, but the entire thing is there when you click on it. Right. This one runs off the field for some reason. But I pasted and copied, but they're there, right? And so you're just going to be replying. And especially if it's a two-part question, go ahead and, answer, write the question, do your answer, write the question, do your answer, right? Keep it organized so that we know what you're talking about, so we can just read your answer. Does that make sense? Okay. So what else did I want to mention? You should have the edit ability. I did leave that turned on for you. So like if you post something and then later on you want to change it, you can. Let me see and make sure. I'll just delete this after, because I am in student mode. Yeah, so see the edit shows up. And like I said, I'll just delete this in my view. So the third thing that you need to do, once you guys have figured out for this class, you guys are picking your questions, once you figured out who's going to answer what, and you start answering them, then you're going to start replying. And you have to reply to everybody except yourself, right? And because I want you guys to read everyone else's post in your discussion board, just in your board, right? And if something is not clear to you, in your reply to them, say, I don't understand this, right? And be specific as to what you don't understand. Or if you think they didn't really even answer the question, say so, right? Say, I don't think this answers this question. If you think they did a great job, spot on, you can just write, good job, okay? But you have to post something so that we know you read it, okay? So you have to reply to everybody's post except your own, of course.
In our specific.
In your specific group. In your specific group. And this is in the instructions, if you read them. I know some people don't, which is why I go over them.
Not to overwhelm or anything, but you
Yeah.
said we'll end up reading all of them in the end?
You'll end up reading all the case studies in the end, right? So right now, what you guys are to do is to work on your case study, your questions, right? Just within your group, okay? And then later, once all of them have been answered, I'm going to post some PowerPoint lectures that go along with these that answer most of the questions. So mostly ones that would probably have been answered in the discussion board. So you won't necessarily have to look at the discussion boards for answers. You will be able to read my PowerPoint or print it out because it's open notes test. The case study in the textbook, and then you'll notice some of them, there's some supplemental material I want you guys to read. Like hepatitis has 2 vaccination sheets I want you to read. Another one has an MWR report where it actually has actual data of how many cases there were of that particular disease in a particular year. So for some of them, there's a couple of extra documents, just a few, not a lot. Right, but eventually, so I mean, if you're curious, after you finish yours, start reading up on the other case studies, because eventually you're going to read them all, and you're going to take an open notes test on the computer. You can do it at home at your own pace on the computer.
The open notes test is going to be on all of them or on?
It's going to be on all of them. The open notes test is on all of them. That's why eventually you will read them all, right? Eventually you will read them all, okay? But you won't necessarily have to answer all the questions on all of them, right?
We'll
Because
yep,
you'll be able to
groups'
read,
answers for them,
you'll be
so
able to
we-
read the other group's answers as well as the PowerPoint that I'll post. But I'm obviously not going to post that until every group has, or after the deadline, I should say. I will post it after the deadline. All right, any other questions on this? All right, so we're going to work on this now all the way till the end of the semester. So once it's done and I start grading the discussion boards, once the groups are done and the deadline has passed, I'll post those PowerPoints. I'll also even make the test available so that you can take it at your leisure from now, literally until the end of the semester. You have even up until the last day of final exams to finish that. But don't procrastinate it, okay? And definitely get your questions answered. All right, so I think that's it. No other questions? Pretty straightforward. It's kind of fun, right? It's better than a research project. And it's a little bit of divide and conquer, right? You don't have to even answer all the questions in the case study, right? You get to divide them up amongst your group. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this recording.